On last night's show, and on many shows before that, we did our best to walk you through the latest numbers on how widely the coronavirus is spreading in this country. We told you what researchers are finding in state after state. As more Americans get tested for this disease, we learn that a far higher percentage of the population has been infected with it than we thought. This new knowledge has radically changed our understanding of how deadly the coronavirus is. For example, health officials once estimated that a little under 1.5% of residents of New York State had been infected with the virus. Broader antibody testing revealed a number many, many times higher than that. In fact, close to 15% have been infected. By definition, these new facts changed the death rate. In New York, that rate went from 7.4%, which is devastating, to 0.5%, which is not. This new science is welcome news. Every elected official in America should be celebrating it. But many are not. Some deeply resent hearing anything about this. Congressman Ted Lieu of Los Angeles is one of those. After last night's show, Lieu scolded us with this outraged tweet, quote, "The current case fatality in the U.S. is over 5.6%, he wrote. Simply unacceptable that Fox News keeps ignoring science," end quote. Ignoring science. There's so many layers of irony here. The first is that Ted Lieu's own congressional district, the people he leads, has a stunningly low vaccination rate. Ted Lieu's voters are so distrustful of vaccine science that measles and whooping cough have come back in force among children in his district. The Atlantic wrote an entire piece about this a few years ago. You should look it up. But the deeper irony here is that Ted Lieu has no idea what he is talking about. Lieu is a yappy little clown. He hasn't spent 5 minutes learning anything about the current research on this pandemic. With no trace of self-awareness, Ted Lieu used comically inaccurate numbers to attack us for, quote, ignoring science. The current case fatality rate in the U.S. is over 5.6%, he intoned, as if 5.6% of Americans infected with the coronavirus were dying. But they're not. That is not true. It is not even close to true. It is absurd as a statistical matter. If Ted Lieu actually believes the death rate in this country from coronavirus is 5.6%, he is even slower than he seems, and that is saying a lot. More likely he knows, but is just lying. We're not sure. We'd love to know what Ted Lieu really believes, so we invited him on the show tonight to tell us what he believes. He wouldn't come, of course. He's afraid. Maybe he'll be watching again tonight. So for Ted Lieu's edification, here is some actual science. Just today, it turns out, a new study emerged from Denmark, a place most people regard as rigorous in its record-keeping. Researchers there tested every adult in the country under 70 who gave blood over an 11-day period this month, close to 10,000 people. They learned what researchers everywhere have learned. An awful lot of people have been exposed to this virus. Relatively few of them have died from it. In Denmark, the infection fatality rate, which is what researchers call the death rate, turned out to be 0.08 percent. That's 82 people out of every 100,000 of the country's entire population under 70. That's not a huge number. The Danish researchers excluded the very old from their study, it is true, and that almost certainly moved the death rate downward by some. The elderly remain by far at highest risk from dying from the coronavirus. But the Danish numbers are still generally consistent with what other scientists are finding throughout the world. Researchers in Scotland estimate a death rate of about 0.04%. In the Netherlands, 0.8%. In Chelsea, Massachusetts, 0.3%. In Los Angeles, 0.1%. In no place where widespread testing has taken place have researchers found a death rate of over 1%. But for some reason, Ted Lieu is still yelping on Twitter about 5.4% of all infected Americans dying from the virus. It's pretty clear why he's doing this. Terrified populations are easier for politicians to control, and they would like to control you. The question is, where is Ted Lieu getting these bad numbers? We don't know for sure because, as we said, Ted Lieu is too cowardly to come on the show. But we guess he's been reading snippets of news stories written by reporters as scientifically illiterate as he is, and there are many of those. Just yesterday, the Hill newspaper ran a piece entitled, "Case Fatality Rates Rise as Coronavirus Runs Deadly Course." In the 5th paragraph, the paper suggests that the death rate in Connecticut is now 7.6%. For perspective, that is a higher death rate than yellow fever, a disease that has killed hundreds of millions of people around the world over the years. If you kept reading the story in The Hill, you discovered that the real death rate from coronavirus might actually be lower than that. Maybe. But it's unlikely that Ted Lieu saw more than the headline. He's not a reader. So the dangerous symbiosis between power-drunk leaders and a compliant, mindless press corps continued. Irresponsible journalists promote bad science. Mediocrities like Ted Lieu use the garbage they produce to subdue the population with fear. Fear is the key. Why are Americans sitting by as politicians destroy their livelihoods and families and ultimately destroy their country? Well, because they think they don't have a choice. They are truly afraid. And as long as they remain afraid, they will put up with anything that politicians do. Ted Lieu does not understand much, but he definitely understands that. That's the point.